Hey everyone, welcome to Political Radar Echo, 30 minutes of political talk about current topics with a panelist from a variety of viewpoints. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this week we're talking about the Green Bay 9/11 Memorial.
This is Political Radar Echo with Cassandra, where we cover many political issues affecting our country with a panel of guests from many viewpoints.
Before we get started, we put out a new video about once a week, so if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notifications. So, our panelists this week, we have Alderman Randy Scannell, and we have Ellen Rosewall. Randy, could you give us a brief introduction and why you're involved in this topic?
I'm a city alder. I'm also a member of the Public Arts Committee, and I was on the subcommittee to address the 9/11 Memorial.
I teach arts management at UWGB, and I have some history on this issue because I was on the board of the Northeastern Wisconsin Arts Council, which is what it was called before. It's now called Mosaic, and when this happened. And I also, as part of what I teach a lot. I have a lot of knowledge in general about public art, arts and communities, and other communities who have had controversies over public art.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So, little background. This year on 9/11, Green Bay had a memorial, and it was, I said decommissioned, but what is it?
Deaccessioned.
Deaccessioned.
Deaccession basically means that it was formally removed from ownership.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this memorial was donated back in 2005, correct? What is the history on that? Ellen, you said you were at the meetings.
Yeah, and as I said, I was on the board of the Northeastern Wisconsin Arts Council at the time, and at the time, the Arts Council was working with the city on a number of pieces of public art. This was one of the first ones. Actually, the reason that we were there that night was to get final approval for the siting of our first major piece of public art, which actually is a work called My House of Feather and Stone by Richard Taylor, and it's on the Fox River Trail, that sculpture walk, behind Johnson Bank kind of now.
Yep.
And that was the first one. And the money had all been raised. It had gone through the Parks Committee, and this was just the final, they'd been approved by Parks and now been approved by the full City Council. And it was mainly just the site that needed to be approved. The city basically allowed the Arts Council to do an open call for artists and bring and then select the work. Okay. But it was a little bit surprising to us that we spent nearly 2 hours defending the work. Which, if you've seen it, it is an abstract piece, but it is not offensive in any way. There's nothing there's nothing conceptual about it that might cause anybody any problems, and indeed it became the first piece in what is now a series of Life on the Water sculptures. So. But we had a lot of questions, and how was this artist chosen? Why was this artist chosen? Who in the world is this artist? Why do we need to accept? And basically, it was because a lot of the alders were not particularly enjoying the abstract art. So it eventually it did pass. It finally did pass. But at that same meeting, a group got up and proposed that the city invest in this 9/11 memorial. And it was very surprising to us that after all of the questions, after all of the in-depth, detailed questions about the work that was by a renowned sculptor who has works in Madison, Milwaukee, and elsewhere in the United States, there were no questions about the 9/11 memorial. It was basically like, oh, we should do this. Yeah. And so it passed. And I think, over the years, I think I have personally, and I think some members of the artistic community have had problems with the fact that there were no artists involved in the choice, in the siting, in that siting, I mean location, SITING, in the construction and the erection of the monument. And had there been artists involved, we could have maybe foreseen some of the issues that are now starting to be a problem.
What year was that? 2003,
2003 or 4, yes. I mean, I would say
3.5.
3.5.
Well,
Well, when
3.5.
when it wasn't. It was within a year before the memorial actually went up.
And it went up in 2005.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it was 2004.
Okay.
But I don't have an exact date.
Right. And for people who know Green Bay or have been here, live here, whatever, the site that we're talking about it's right down on the Fox River,
Right.
Right by the Neville Public Museum. Mm-hmm. All right. So it went up 2005. Fast forward. Here we are. We're in 2017.
Yeah.
What has happened? Why, between 2005 and 2017, what happened? Why did this need to be deaccessioned?
The monument deteriorated considerably. The marble apparently was not ever meant to be an outdoor marble for use outdoor, and it cracked. It didn't hold up to the cold. The weathering on it with the names, you can't read any of the names. Some of the information was wrong.
The flight numbers.
The flight numbers are wrong. So it has been a problem for quite some time. It's been in that state
For several years.
Yeah, several years.
Yeah.
And it's been a concern. I mean, it's been up for a lot of discussion. But until we had a Public Arts Committee, it was just kind of fumbled around. I wasn't sure if it should go to Parks, if it should go to Public Works, who should be handling this. Once we got a Public Arts Committee, it seemed to be the right committee to handle the ball on this. And it went to Parks initially because they're in charge of the site.
Okay.
So then they passed it off to the Public Arts Committee to check it out. We formed a subcommittee, which consisted of both the fire chief, the police chief, Steve Grenier, the Public Works Director, Shelby, our staff member on the Public Arts Committee, and myself. And we put in... we wanted first Steve Grenier to check out the memorial and its status. Just what condition it's in, what can be done about it. And so at our meeting, he said it was just he didn't think it was possible to repair. That it was and with the misinformation and everything, why repair it?
Right.
So we started focusing on what can we do with it. So then there was talk of building another memorial, and we started focusing on perhaps it should be an indoor memorial because the girder itself was also an inside girder. It was never meant to be exposed to the elements. And so we started focusing that way. And
we wanted to point out there is for people who don't know, there is a piece of the Twin Towers.
Towers.
The girder is a piece that was donated, or they somehow
they had somehow obtained it, and I don't, again, I wasn't ever very clear. It was a nonprofit group at the time that had formed, and they said that their mission was to put that they had obtained these pieces, and their mission was to put one of these in every state and DC. This was the only one built. Yep. And this is after they'd approached other cities. They approached Madison. I'm not sure if they approached Milwaukee, but I know that Madison turned it down, but this was the only one. This was the only community that bought it.
There's a girder that was from the Twin Towers, so that was taken down. It's
now being displayed in the lobby of the police department.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if anyone wants to go.
Anyone wants to see, and that's open 24/7, so it's right in the lobby. You can go see it.
Right. And I mean, if you go to New York, I visited the National 9/11 Museum this January, and all of the pieces of the girder there are all indoors.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe, like you said, I don't believe that was meant to be exposed to the elements. That was all part of the inside of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So I had originally thought when I would drive by it that it was enclosed or something.
No, it was exposed.
So that was exposed to the elements.
Yep.
Eventually that would
Deteriorate as well, yep.
Yeah.
rust up and deteriorate. So something needs to be done.
Yes.
So right now,
Long overdue.
and it's fairly embarrassing that this is what our community is put together. So right now, okay, so all of this has happened. Why is this a controversy, you may ask?
Well,
what transpired this week?
during one of the subcommittee meetings, we had heard a rumor that there was something in the concrete buried in the middle in the monument.
A capsule.
A capsule of some sort. And we tried to find out information on that. We could find nothing on that. There was no documentation of anything like that. So we just dismissed it as a rumor and just continued on with the plan.
Right. I believe I had seen somewhere that maybe WBAY does have a picture or soundbite of a small capsule or something being placed, but it was never, it wasn't done as like a ceremony, or there's nothing marking.
Yeah, there's no, I mean...
there's no documentation that's been provided.
No,
Right.
no,
So
and I believe I've talked to other media and they've checked their archives. They've got nothing.
Okay.
And there's nothing in the city documenting that. So I don't know, one, what exactly is in this tube and where it came from and how it was obtained, nor do I know exactly how this tube was placed into the monument. So those are the questions I want answered before going forward.
So, but let's address, this is where now it starts to get a little creepy. So as I'm watching the city council meeting on YouTube on Tuesday night, I think my husband and I just about fell off the couch when it was said, Barb Jack of Sherwood, which is here in Brown County, she said she had something, she said she designed the memorial. Okay, so she claims to have designed it. She seems to be in charge of it somehow. She had the brother of a victim.
His brother was on the Flight 11 that I believe was the first plane that flew into the tower.
Right. She claimed that the tube contains a remnant of a victim, and I believe the words teeth and hair were...
And bone, I thought.
Bone,
Yeah.
maybe? So this was where I was like, oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty big claim.
It's a huge claim.
That's it. So now we're getting into, now we have body parts in there, and she claims to have no documentation or documentation. I did speak with my alderman, Chris Weary, who said she has a binder full of information. So hopefully she brings that forward to you and you can look at it. But also supposedly a lot of it is in the computer of a man who died.
Supposedly, and unfortunately, and I don't know why, Alder Zima and Alder Weary, they had some documents, and why they didn't make enough to share with the rest of the council, I don't know. I did get to look at some of the, Weary sits right next to me, so I got to look at some of that, but as far as I can tell, the documents I saw, there's just one of a picture of a construction worker holding a pipe. Looked like so maybe... Okay.
So maybe that's the picture that they're saying that's the tube, or... Yep,
PCP pipe with that, had everything. And the rest of the documentation just seemed to be about granite and stuff to perhaps try and fix the memorial.
So let's address this. There were a lot of other claims made, but the one that's most concerning to me is that the remnant of a victim. Because, first of all, the monument never stated anything about that. I think that should have been stated. And second of all, then we get into some state laws about
Well, not
was
only
gonna
state
say
laws,
there's
federal
some-
laws. I mean, how is
Yeah.
this transported? I mean, and who's the victim? And are the
Right.
relatives of the victim okay with this? And how did we? I want to know exactly what's in that tube and how it was acquired.
And how?
Well,
okay,
and what kind of proof is it that
right. So
it really was? Yeah.
Yeah.
and how would they know? Now, most of the body parts. I don't. This makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Okay.
really.
But so when you go to the 9/11 memorial in New York City, those pieces that were unable to be identified, there's a room where all of those are kept. And if you are a member of the family of somebody who passed, you can go in there. You have to have proof, but you can go in there into a private grieving room. And that's so from my understanding, that's where most of all of that was kept
Yeah.
for families.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand there's many people who maybe can't afford to go there, and that I hope that everybody who had somebody die that day is able to go to that grieving room at some point. But how did a body remnant get out of there across state lines and into?
That's a good question. I can't wait for the answer to that question. That was why when this first surfaced, I almost discounted it immediately. I mean, we still tried to find out some information on it, but it just sounded too incredible and too wrong to be true.
And
You know, there's another issue here too, and that is ethics in archaeology and museum work. And what many people don't know is that along with the first responders and along with people that were at ground zero cleaning up the site and so forth, there were professional historians and archaeologists there documenting and collecting archival material, you know, from the and this is what confuses me, because they would not have just allowed somebody to pick up something.
right.
They would probably, and we don't, you know, really, we don't have any documentation as far as I know. And Randy, maybe you have something that I haven't ever seen, that is actually a piece of girder from ground zero. You know, I mean,
right, true.
you know, we don't. So, and how was that obtained? And that, you know, when we're talking about remnants that are in the thing, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I've always been curious as to, you know, given the nature of the documentation of the site and the protection of the site as a place of a terrorist attack and the security of the site. How did this happen? How did pieces of, you know, of ground zero get around the country? And if this was the only one that was sold, did they have other pieces? Where are they?
Yeah.
You know.
Right. If they were going to do one in all 50 states and DC.
Right.
So it's my understanding that the New York Port Authority is in charge of doling out pieces, and they did want there was an effort, or there still is an effort, to make sure that there is a piece of it in all 50 states, and there are pieces all over the world. I would assume if you received those pieces, you would have to get documentation. I believe it has to go through a federal judge to have it passed on. It can't go to any private individuals. It has to go to, most of them have gone to municipalities and have been used in memorials. The memorials that I have looked at have all been done a little bit more abstract, not quite so literal
Right.
as ours, done more as a piece of public art, and have had artists that have been commissioned to help with those. So
Well, I know. But in my, I mean, I'm not. I think that you know, the inclusion of artists, you know, the documentation of materials and so forth, is the respectful and patriotic thing to do. You know, that is the way to truly memorialize. And I do have a lot of sympathy for those who look at this, and on the surface of it, it looks like, oh, Green Bay's tearing down a memorial to 9/11. But if we're going to do this, we need to do it in a very respectful way.
Right. Yep. And that was a big concern of this committee, that we do it in a respectful way. And I think you know, when we took off the girder, I think we did that very
Yes.
respectfully and very
I think
well.
so too.
As far as the rest of it, the rest of it doesn't have that kind of significance. Well, what we thought was the rest of it. I mean, if there's a
Right,
pipe
if
in there
there's
now,
more.
Yeah.
So besides, okay, so she claimed there's remnants of a victim, that there's also
a bottle of holy
a
water,
bottle of holy water
which
blessed by the Pope.
I don't know. It came from a bishop in New York. But I don't know what significance a bottle of holy water, wherever it came from, has to do with anything, as far as that, the monument goes.
And a pentagon stone.
Well, yeah.
She says there's a pentagon stone in there as well.
You mean a stone
From the
from the Pentagon, not a 5-sided stone.
No. Yeah.
I'm taking her
Well,
words. I was.
Yeah.
She says a pentagon stone. So yes,
Okay.
probably a stone from the
From the
pentagon.
Pentagon.
Yeah. See, and that's another, how
She picked it up on the lawn or what?
So again, I would assume that you have to have documentation to have any of those
Right.
pieces. From what I was reading, it's very quickly going through federal court. It's not like they're holding them up. They're going through these requests, and they are doling them out. But I would assume you have to have paperwork.
yes,
You're having
there
to
should
go
be a paper
through-
trail of some sort.
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully she can come up with that. And if it is hiding on some computer, there are people who can get into those computers.
Well,
and-
even if, there should be a federal trail as well that we should
Right.
be able to pick up on. And certainly, if there's documentation on a computer, we should be able to access that fairly easily, even if someone who has a computer doesn't know how to work it.
Right.
Someone will know how to work it.
So the other issue is that she didn't come forward with this information until Tuesday night, and she said she didn't hear anything about the deaccession. I can't say that word.
It's a tough word. Go with decommission. Go with decommission.
No, I need to use the right word. It's a tough one for me. She didn't know about it until it was on the news on 9/11 that it was coming down,
Yeah.
she claims. However, I have seen things in the paper,
It was
online.
widely.
Starting in like June, I want to say, I started to see things about the committees and there were public committee meetings.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
And I must have done, I swear, 8 to 10 interviews with various stations the week before, leading up to, or even a couple weeks before starting. So, the information was out there, but if she didn't see it, she didn't see it. I'm not going to doubt she didn't see it, but if she said she didn't. But it certainly wasn't any lack on our part from getting out the information and trying to find out everything we could and move forward as respectfully and intelligently as we could.
Mm-hmm. So she didn't, and it was clear there were issues before. She also claimed that 7 years ago she had raised $14,000 to have the memorial fixed because, as you said, the granite was cracking. Ellen, I think you said it's not meant to be.
It's indoor granite.
It's indoor.
Indoor
granite.
It's indoor granite. Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's cracking, and it's in an area that would really get weathered.
Oh,
when you
yeah.
get right there.
Very
on
much
the-
exposed to the elements
Yeah,
there.
exposed
very
right
much.
to-
Yeah.
I always think about my daughter and I go to the Neville and cold days, the water is just like right up against the glass there. So it had to be really getting beaten down by the weather.
I think that's why it pretty deteriorated pretty quickly, I think. Didn't take
It
long.
did. I think it was.
it deteriorated much more quickly. It
Well-
shows the level of construction in the fact that 15 years later it's gone.
Right. Well, not
Yeah.
even because I think it was 2014 they started saying the names and everything were in,
Right.
you couldn't read them.
Illegible.
Right.
Yeah.
So she claimed she raised $14,000 to have it repaired in 2010 and that the mayor didn't accept it, that Mayor Jim Schmidt did not accept that money. And now
That would have been
the
seed
money-
money. That would not have been enough.
Okay.
They were hoping to start that to kick off a fundraising to raise enough money to do it. But then that money was put in a bank and subsequently it was stolen. So,
it was stolen. Yeah.
was stolen.
Ellen's over there going,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You didn't hear that?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. So when when the alders brought that up, or a couple of alders brought that up, and I really thought that was, what does that got to do with today, with now, with anything? It really seemed to be politicized, and that was unfortunate. I think that was disrespectful.
yeah.
There shouldn't be politics. There should be trying to figure out what we should do with this monument. in the most respectful way possible.
Yeah.
All right, so $14,000. What do either of you have any idea of, like, what would it have taken? Obviously, $14,000 really wasn't going to do very much. What would it have
Personally,
taken?
I don't think it could have been repaired. I don't think it can be repaired.
Yeah.
I think that it needs to. I mean, obviously, the granite can't be repaired.
Yeah.
It has to be completely replaced.
Yeah.
The steel is deteriorating. That had to be completely replaced. Okay. The piece of girder needs to be enclosed and protected.
She claimed that they. And I didn't quite catch what the substance. They put something on the girder to protect it.
Oh,
ooh,
that's what she said.
What they sprayed a little fixative on it, or they just
don't know. I can't remember.
Put some Mod Podge on it, or that scares me too, because again, without guidance from professionals, who knows what was put on that thing and how it affects it. But it has, and I am not an expert I'm not a sculpture expert. I'm not an expert in these kinds of materials. But it seems to me that repair is really out of the question. Okay. It's not a matter of just, fixing, patching cracks and drilling, and drilling the names in deeper or something. It's a matter of completely replacing all of the materials.
Yeah.
So
and then there's some talk of possibly doing that, of getting new granite.
Yeah.
And getting
But we're looking at. I mean, the original. Randy, do you have any information? Because I'm going to talk off the top of my head, and I probably can be completely wrong. But the figure that sticks in my head of the cost of the original was $100,000.
You see, and I've heard a couple of different numbers, and I've heard 250, which sounds incredibly high.
Yeah, that is
so I'm
well,
not really
the Lombardi
sure.
and the Lambo statues were $250 each. So that's the kind of quality you get for $250. But no, and then at the same time, again, we were looking at in the Richard Taylor piece that we were going was about $55,000, which was a bargain for what we got from that. Mm-hmm. And so to commission something in 2017 from a qualified artist with the credentials and the name recognition or whatever to be able to do it, I think would be at least $150,000, because the site would need to be re-prepared. It's not just plunking it down on the grass, right? There's the sinking of something into the earth to help, to keep it stable, and to grade, do all the grading and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention, again, we're
want
looking
grade A.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We want grade A. But not to mention the fact that the correct materials to do this are going to cost a lot more than the original materials did.
Yeah. So I think before we even consider reconstructing it, it's really not repaired, be reconstructing it. We really need to find out what sort of materials are in it, and is there a legal issue?
Right.
And we may have to tear this thing down to retrieve those materials and properly handle those. So we got to answer those questions first.
Could the city be in trouble for having?
I don't know. Certainly, I don't think so, but it's possible. You never know. But I don't think, because the city didn't do this. We'd have some documentation. There's no documentation. I really get the feeling, and I don't want to assume something, but it seems that they had this. They gathered these materials. They put them in a tube. They went to the construction site and had it placed.
They being the original
yes,
group, which is now defunct. So there's nobody to legally to go.
Well, it sounds like Ms. Jocks and Mike were part of that.
Were part of that, but legally they weren't. They weren't the organization. Even if they were part of it,
Right.
Can they legally be held responsible for the actions of a 501c3 nonprofit
Yeah,
organization?
I don't know. Maybe they can. Maybe they would be more responsible than the 501c.
Well, there you go.
I mean, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah. So there's some questions that got to be worked out and some legal issues looked at, and I'm not sure. Even if there aren't any legal issues, do we still want the monument to have those kinds of things in it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a discussion to have.
discussion.
That's
Right,
a community discussion we need to have.
Doesn't
Yeah.
that change
The very
it
nature of
changes
it.
the designation of it?
Yeah,
Yep.
it does.
Yep.
Makes it.
More of a.
I had been messaging with Bill Galvin, another alderman, and he said it changes it from a
monument to a.
monument to a
Memorial.
crematory.
Crematory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So-
Exactly. A mausoleum. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
That's
I
granite.
don't want to put
A lot
it
of
up.
granite mausoleum. You know.
Right. Yeah.
I might have it here, but he said it does. It changes the designation of it. So
It would no longer be a monument.
so that's it would it would be
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Would it
Okay,
have to be
so-
designated like a gravesite or something like that?
It would, yes.
It'd have to be.
I would think so.
Legally reclassified.
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote it down. It would need to be designated as a mausoleum.
Mausoleum. You're right.
I was right.
Yeah.
Right. So that changes all of it. And that
Yeah.
does that have any impact on how much it would cost?
Yeah.
The reconstruction, no, those materials will stay the same and everything. But as far as redesignating it, if there might be some legal expenses to do that and so on. I don't know if it'd be very much. But again, is that really what we want?
Right.
Yeah. Again, I think that's a community discussion
Yep.
that wasn't had before.
No.
About whether or not that we wanted this to be part of it, or exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So the one other thing that she said was that the piece of the girder that the city then moved. There was a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
There was a ceremony on 9/11 of this year. Moved to the police station, like you said. Barb Jacks or Jocks, I can't.
Jocks.
Okay, she said that this piece of the Twin Towers could not be moved without ground zero approval.
Yeah,
and I'm using air quotes because I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, I
like
don't know
ground
what that
zero
means
is
either.
a.
Well, there is a Ground Zero Foundation, that operates
Okay.
the Ground Zero Museum and so forth. So, but I'm not sure what that means.
I don't think
I don't
they're
know
the
what legal
ones-
authority they
Yeah,
have.
I think we're still memorializing the piece. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like it's not like it's being put into a warehouse or something. And the intent is to still have a monument. So I'm not sure if maybe we do need to contact Ground Zero, but I don't know if that's really going to be a problem or an
Thinking
issue.
it's the Port
if we're gonna-
Authority that she's discussing.
Oh, that could be.
I think it's the Port Authority.
The proper authorities. As long as we're going to, because when they gave the girder, I don't know if they knew of exactly, it was going to be in a monument. I don't know if they knew the specifics of
Right.
it. So
Right.
it's still going to be part of a monument. So I'm not sure that that's
Yeah.
a problem. We still may need to get their authorization, perhaps.
She also
or at least let them
claimed
know,
that
heads up.
She also claimed that it had to be outside, or that all pieces of the girder had to be outside, or something. Which a quick search of different articles shows that that's not true. There's many pieces that are indoors. There are pieces. I actually read about a piece that was part of a traveling exhibit that would go to different schools, so that school children could see pieces of it. So I don't know about the truth of it having to be outside.
You would think it would be better not to have it outside. It's going to deteriorate. I mean, I don't know what kind of substance they covered it with or coated it with. I don't know how long that coating lasts. I mean,
Right. And like I said, in New York, there aren't pieces outside. For a while, there were pieces that were left outside as they cleaned up Ground Zero.
Right.
I go there about once a year, so I saw it all getting cleaned up and moved around. And now I believe it's in a hangar at Kennedy Airport. All of the stuff is kept there, and it's under the authority of the Port Authority, which is
there's the airport authority too?
airports, basically infrastructure, transportation. They do all of that. It's a little different out there. It's something that we don't really have around
They're
here.
very
so
portable.
They're very portable. Thanks, Randy.
Or
So
I get it.
Okay, so I'm thinking that's who she means she needs to contact. But like I said, the just the quick research, and I had some help from somebody on Facebook who was sharing information. Thanks, Leah. She was giving great articles. I don't know that that's true that it has to be outside. But I do think it should be accessible.
Yeah, and in the lobby, it's accessible 24. I mean, there's been talk about maybe putting a display in the museum, which is I'm not sure if the museum is interested, and it's certainly possible. We could look into that going forward. But one problem with that is it would not be accessible 24/7.
Right. And
there's always a possibility of making it a part of an outdoor monument, but properly protected and enclosed.
Yep.
right.
You know, so it still could be seen, but not just drilled onto. I mean, affixed onto the front of a statue.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the thought going forward was that it was going to Green Bay is planning to get a new police and fire department. And the plan,
Public safety building.
right. So the plan was to have it there, which speaking with Bill Galvin last night, he thought that was appropriate, seeing the number of firefighters and police officers who lost their lives.
And if we do want to do something outside, perhaps it could be there instead of the museum.
A lot of people feel,
whatever.
though, that spot is very accessible. It's very central. A lot of people walk by there, different directions.
But I mean the
There's-
museum site.
Right,
Yeah, the
there's a
museum
museum.
site. Yeah, yeah.
There's so many
Yeah,
things that
right on
happen
the
in
river
the
there.
community.
Yeah, it's right downtown.
Right.
No.
So
And, who says there has to be just one? I mean, who
Right.
says
Maybe the girder.
maybe
could
the
be-
girder could be displayed one place and a 9/11 memorial of some different. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. I don't think anything has to be an either or situation.
And certainly those decisions have to be made today. We got time.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
so
We've got other questions we got to answer.
right.
today.
Yeah, right.
Wait, Halloween's coming up. We need to find out about these body parts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Ooh. Okay, so going forward, what are the steps that are taken? What should happen? What is going to
Well,
happen?
what's going to happen is it's going to go to the Parks Committee, which I was all in favor of. I think that passed unanimously. I think everybody wants to get down to the bottom of this. They will, gather up as much information as they can, investigate as much as they can. Before this, I was talking to David Nennick, the chair of the Parks. We were talking about this. He's starting to do some digging already. And we'll see what the answers are to some of these questions. And depending upon the answers, we'll then look at reconstructing or perhaps going forward the way we were, or I know maybe we'll have to figure out what to do with these items.
I personally am glad that there's now a Green Bay Public Art Commission.
Me
And,
too.
I mean, for many reasons, and not the least of which is the staffer is a grad of mine and a love of mine. So she's very good, and she's
She
she's
is very
an
good. She's
asset to
great.
the city.
Yep.
But I know that means that the artist's voice will be heard, and that those ethical issues, the construction issues, the artistic issues, and the archaeology and cultural issues, those kinds of things will be a part of the discussion this time, and I'm very glad for that.
Yeah. It needs to be done right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, good. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for coming on. It was a really interesting conversation, and I hope everyone else thinks so too. I know it's a very local topic, but I think
It's got national interest.
yeah,
Everybody,
everyone has a
check it out.
Yeah, check it out. I mean, everyone was affected by 9/11, so
Yeah.
I think our community really wants to memorialize it, but we need to do it right.
We need to do the right thing.
Yeah, we need to do it. So don't look at the headlines, everyone out there, and think, oh, Green Bay's taking down their memorial. That's not the case. We want to do it right.
We're trying to address an issue that has been a problem. I mean, the state of the memorial it was shameful and way too long. So I'm glad we finally got the ball rolling, and it's been an interesting roll.
Yes.
And it's not over yet.
Yeah.
But hopefully we got the ball rolling now, and something, we're going to end up in the right spot.
I think so too.
I hope so. So thanks to both of you. I want to thank the other people who reached out and gave me information. Bill Galvin, Chris Weary, a lot of people on Facebook shared their expertise with me. So it's really a group effort, and I appreciate it. So shout out to all of you who took time to message me, who couldn't be on the show. So So that's it. That ends Political Radar episode 14.
Hi, Mom.
Both. For show notes, go to politicalradar.com/14. For more great political content, check out Political Radar Pulse. And if you'd like to support the show, you can like us on Facebook, and you can join the Political Radar Echo community on Facebook. You can also buy shirts and other merchandise at politicalradar.com/shop. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Political Radar Echo. To ensure that you'll never miss an episode, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. To check out more episodes of Political Radar Echo, visit politicalradarecho.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.